Thanks, Russell, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to present to you. I'm well aware that the legal aspects of forestry and logging can be somewhat dry, so the presentation only lasts half an hour and then you've got morning tea. We are at a point of substantial change in financial markets, and as forest owners you've probably only seen a small amount of the change that's coming through. These changes are a once in a generation set of change, and they've been occasioned by some quite horrendous losses in the finance company sector. This presentation isn't about the finance company sector, but I'm sure you're well aware of cases such as Lombard and others that have quite pointedly highlighted weaknesses in our financial markets over the more recent history. As the finance company collapses gained momentum through the GFC, and there was strong representation to government, including from our own corporate trust industry, we saw the advent of the Financial Markets Authority. And the Financial Markets Authority first chief executive, I think, was an interesting choice. Sean Hughes, with his background at Bell Gully and then time overseas in a regulatory environment that was probably stricter than what we were experiencing in New Zealand, was a good choice. He was a guy that was not afraid to litigate, and litigate he did. So we saw in the first 2 years of the Financial Markets Authority's existence a very heavy litigation program and a fearless litigation program where some quite key New Zealand figures were taken to task. When Sean moved out of the Financial Markets Authority, I understand his wife was quite keen to get back to Australia where the shopping is a little bit more favourable. It was very interesting to see how the government made the replacement in Sean's position. There were quite a number of candidates, and we were speculating quite heavily in terms of which way they'd go with the candidates. They had some candidates that were in a similar mould to Sean and were likely to continue to focus on the regulations as they were passed and the enforcement of the regulations and continue quite a strong litigation track. But they didn't go that way. They brought a guy in from overseas with quite a strong financial sector background at a commercial level, and it's been very interesting to see the sort of comment that Rob's been making and the way in which he's changing the supervision landscape away from litigation to active involvement with the various investment vehicles that we have in New Zealand. So I prepared some slides. Wanted to give you a bit of an idea of how the financial markets are evolving and the regulation of the financial markets are evolving, and wanted to give you an idea of how your partnership structures sit within those changes, and really to give you a little bit of a warning that there is some quite substantial change coming through. We're very lucky to have Roger Dickey as a client because Roger Dickey is leading the way in quite a number of these aspects. one of the things that comes through often in our review meetings with the FMA is the degree to which investors are being kept informed of not only the past year, but what's coming in the year ahead and beyond. And I think conferences like this, when the FMA gets to hear about it, are a big tick for Roger Dickey. Other things that really come out strongly are the ways in which the Roger Dickey team is keeping a practical eye on the regulatory changes. It's very easy for this kind of change to load cost into the business. The economics of forestry are finely balanced. The industry doesn't need a whole lot of extra costs just because the regulations have changed. So I mentioned that I prepared some slides. I found the clicker. This presentation is trying to get you into the sorts of change that's ahead of you as forest owners. If I'm going off track and not covering the ground that you want covered, put your hand up and we'll change tack. We'll start with looking at some of the summary information that Rob's issued. As a change in style in the Financial Markets Authority, Rob's worked through his supervisors, such as our own business, Foundation Corporate Trust, and the audit profession, which is now licensed by the FMA. And you'll see on page 8 of your program, your auditors, Silks, approved licensed auditors. So it's a new development. What he's looking for in the groups of people and professions that work alongside your partnerships is the degree to which they have depth of experience in the forestry industry. He's looking at the breadth of experience across all of the different disciplines that are going to get you best value and improve the safety of your investment. So when we work with the Financial Markets Authority on Roger Dickey forests, we are on a 6-monthly review with the FMA. So we report through to the FMA the kinds of decisions that are being made by the forest manager and the way in which the forests are being administered. And we ourselves are reviewed annually to make sure that we have a full grasp of the risks that your partnerships are facing and the degree to which they're being mitigated. The experience of the last 2 years working with the FMA in the forestry sector would suggest that their particular focus at the current time is the degree to which forest managers are preparing for the harvest period and the degree to which they're bringing in specialist expertise, particularly if this is their first harvest. And again, it's nice to have a client like Roger Dickey, who've probably put themselves ahead of the game and making sure that they are in touch with the right professionals and engaging them in their business. So, in terms of our conversations with the FMA about dual partnerships, they are regular and are quite searching, and so we draw a reasonable amount of information from Roger Dickey that is summarised and benchmarked against our other forest clients and also the industry more generally, informing the view that we put to FMA. In terms of where we're at in the regulatory change cycle, the FMA was formed, as I mentioned, as a result of some of the strong concerns around finance company collapses. The FMA's done more than form itself. It's made a strong statement with its litigation. We're now at the point where statutory supervisors such as Foundation Corporate Trust are licensed. Your auditors and auditors generally are licensed, and a number of participants have fallen out of the market as a result of the licensing process. We're now coming up to quite an interesting point in the change process around custody. And there is potential for this to add cost, and I think we've got to work carefully together to ensure that it doesn't. The Financial Markets Conduct Act, passed last year, means that the custody of your forests will change. Currently, the forest manager is linked to the title. That will change, and the legislation envisages that the title will pass to us as the supervisors. And you can imagine when we mentioned this to our insurers and started talking about health and safety issues, let alone some of the resource management issues, it was hard to keep them in the room. But nevertheless, that's what the legislation is saying, and we've got to find a way of making that work. And so our commitment as your statutory supervisors is to do that at least additional cost, and try and get to the nub of what the legislation requires without getting in the way of the harvest period, the replanting period, and doing the things that need to be done in order to maximise the value you get out of your forest. So our role's changing, and we have reorganised ourselves to meet the challenge. The historic role of the trustee was to take your partnership agreements and make sure that clause by clause, the people involved in managing your forest were working to the letter of the deed. Those days have passed with the advent of the Financial Markets Authority. We are in a very different time. Most of what we do is focused on analysing the material that comes through from your forest manager for your partnership, and making sure that we are very sure about the risks that you face going forward, and very sure that we understand the mitigation that's in place for those risks. And that's been a change for us over the last 2 years, and the changes there are pretty much complete. Over the coming year, we'll be working with the Roger Dickey team to understand the opportunities for minimising the amount of work involved in changing the custodianship through from its current arrangements to us as supervisors. The other things that we are needing to keep an eye on, and this is talking more generally and beyond Roger Dickey, because Roger Dickey are very much taking the lead in looking forward. But across the industry, we do have situations where forest managers are struggling. They have been in a silviculture mode, and moving to the harvest mode is going to be a challenge. So as statutory supervisors, we have the opportunity to bring experts in to support their decision making and to improve the safety of the investment. In those circumstances, the FMA is quite heavily involved, and so as investors in Roger Dickey Forest, I think you can take a lot of comfort from the fact that you're dealing with a very professional body that is leading the industry. And also take comfort that if there are any concerns, that those concerns do move through to the FMA quite quickly, and there are a very wide set of powers that are available to ensure that the safety of your investment is protected at all times. I'm not very good with this button, but we found it. So just to give you an idea of the expertise base that we work from, we supervise 235 forests across 10 forest managers such as Roger Dickey. What this does is gives us quite a database of material that helps us through that risk identification, risk mitigation, review work. It helps us to build reasonably robust IT systems to ensure that the custodial function is one that is no more than what's required and operates efficiently. So let's spend a little bit of time working through what it is the Foundation Corporate Trust does for you as forest partners in risk identification and monitoring. What I put up on the board there is a slide that tries to summarise some of the areas that we are currently engaged in, and I'll just run through some of the work we do, and we're open to investor and partner contact on any of these issues at any time, but the preference is that your contact is through the forest manager. We've been working with the Ministry of Primary Industries in terms of how the resource consenting process will work for forest partnerships such as yours. There is precedent through local government for long, drawn-out and expensive consenting process, which denigrates value. At the moment with primary industries, they are interested in setting national standards for local bodies to reduce the amount of duplication in some of the consenting processes and applications, and to try and ensure that you get efficient decisions that aren't expensive to obtain. One of the areas where local authorities have been most difficult to work with in the past has been in roading, particularly where there are multiple bridges in the stretch of road between the forest and the port. Again, primary industries are aware of this issue, and through the work they're doing and bringing together national standards for local bodies, there are opportunities for forests in the same area to work together to deal with bridge and other roading issues collectively, to shortcut the amount of time it takes to get local government comfort around transportation such that the consent is issued efficiently. The other areas that we have spent quite a bit of time monitoring is the way in which the sales and marketing environment is changing. And there have been a few developments over this year, one of them being the new business launched by Pentark and the Chinese, looking to help forest partners in get the best value for their forest. Our concern and a lot of what we've been reviewing in terms of new opportunity in the sales and marketing area, a lot of it's based on stuntage, and the pricing models that we reviewed on stuntage suggests that they're taking the bottom of the curve rather than midway up the curve or even at the top of the curve on price. So we're continuing to monitor the stumpage market and the way in which it's working. But in terms of your partnerships and where you're focused and where Roger Dickey's taking you in terms of getting best value, it definitely looks like the way to go in terms of what's available in the market at the current time. Some of our conversations with clients around gang availability and transport suggests to us that there really is a problem emerging. We've seen some pretty dirty play around transport bottlenecks, and we are very keen to see that this risky area gets elevated, and it's one where again central government has a part to play through agencies such as Kiwi Rail, diffusing some of the situations that we've seen in other clients. The replant will be a very interesting period for partners. There's going to be a difficult calculation to be made around land value. As partners, you'll be investing quite significantly into consenting, let alone roads and on-the-ground infrastructure. That's going to have quite a value. Most of the value calculations we see completed by valuers at the current time aren't necessarily factoring that in. But the practical implication of this is, yes, you'll get some value at the time trees are harvested, but there's a very difficult piece of value to be calculated around what the residual land value is and what it means for you, and what that means for the way in which you think about your options, replanting as opposed to a sale of land. So that's something that over time we'll be spending a little bit more on, and trying to make sure that we understand what the issues are for you as we look to preserve the safety of investments. The wild card that is difficult to predict and could have value for you is the ETS opportunities. You will have seen quite a bit of legal advice prior to the recent budget for arbitrage. It's a situation that we've been monitoring carefully to make sure that where forest managers are taking decisions, they're taking them in your best interest and ensuring you're well informed, and we saw that this morning. So again, Roger Dickey, a really easy client to work with, well aware of the issues, keeping you informed, involving you in decision making, and those are the sorts of things that as supervisors we can pass on to the FMA, which really does have Roger Dickey leading the field. But with the budget decision around trading, which came very much unannounced, we have put back to government some quite strong representations about needing to be clear about their direction in this area and ensuring that forest partners have a bit more certainty in terms of their opportunities. So the last slide that I have here talks around forest custody. It's still a bit too early to call the right way of doing this. The FMA, in releasing its early guidance to us, was really trying to emphasise that they made the rules, but they're open to finding ways around the rules for long-term investments such as forestry. So I think we've got to take that opportunity, and in working with Roger Dickey, we have to find a way that's low cost. The things that are covered by this new legislation are the titles themselves, NETS credits, and in your supervisor holding those things along with potentially the bank accounts as well. We've got to make sure that we're in a situation where the insurance arrangements stay pretty much as they are. So we share the insurance over a greater group of people so that your insurance premium doesn't change, because that's likely to be the biggest cost impact of these changes. So we've been able to work with Sally and others and looking at the way in which your existing insurance will cover the new arrangements without adding premium. And I believe where we're at now, we have very good options for holding premiums. The other aspect is to keep the level of administration down, and again, working with Sally, we've looked at ways in which a lot of the administration that we currently do, which isn't about measuring and managing residual risk and isn't about custody, stays with Roger Dickey, so that we're not adding cost. And that process is ongoing and is being assisted by some of the new information technology systems we're putting in between Foundation, Corporate Trust and Roger Dickey. At the end of the day, I'd like to think we get to a situation where there's been a lot of regulatory change, very little of it has impacted on your partnerships on a cost basis, but the things that you're starting to see come through from your supervisors is assurance around the risk elements of the business and assistance where we can through our size and making representations to government, and that the custody arrangements are such that you have full confidence that your interests are being protected. But I think what will sit at the base of it is that you are with a forest manager that is fully across the issues, thinking ahead, identifying the key people and the key skills that will ensure that your investment is safe and maximise your value. And so I think on that basis, as I've probably mentioned a few times through the presentation, you're probably in a leadership position. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Kim.